Welcome aboard, everyone. Charles Moscowitz here. Michael D. Shaw is my guest. And we're kind of doing I guess you might say, and probably will do a series of 2025 year-end wrap-ups, sort of like sports wrap-up, right? Um, and I missed the show yesterday, and it made me think about what the heck is going on in that I've been sort of in a funk, as I was saying, with regard to doing talk radio, and have been since really around 2018 when the censorship regime started. When I got into doing online talk, I had all this enthusiasm. I was ready to really roll. It never occurred to me that I couldn't talk about anything I wanted to talk about, and I did so. And that continued through the pandemic. I was on a roll then too. But then I think when you had the false flag of January 6th, when you had the stolen election, and then you had the setup when right after that, Twitter dropped President Trump's account. He had something like, must have had like 50 million followers. And they shut down Parler, which was competing with Twitter, and they shut down many, many thousands of accounts. And then we find out about the algorithm, which was described to me by Alex Marlowe from Breitbart, who told me that at that time, Breitbart had lost about a third of its following overnight for some strange reason. You had other major figures losing their accounts. And I just, I felt, and then of course, then Trump had to leave office, and it was all the gnashing of teeth around that. And I just feel like I went into sort of a period of discouragement about doing talk. I sort of stopped. I kind of became diminished. I gradually did less and less guests. And I'm grateful, Mike, that you stuck around. I mean, you're doing a great job, and I really appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd do anything if it wasn't for you, actually. I mean, I am doing a few. I have a couple of shows maybe next week, but for the most part, I can see that, first of all, you can't assume that everything is going to be the way it is. You have to be aware. I mean, that's what happened. I lost my business because of that, after 20 years.
Well, I mean, that's the key. And here's a subject that you won't think is related, but it is. Today, as you may know, the APIC group, which controls the vaccination list, decided to take the Hep B, which is given to day-old infants, and that was on the schedule since sometime in the 90s, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this world that you don't sort of notice immediately. But then when you find out, you think about it, and you think like, what the hell were they thinking giving a Hep B vaccine? It's a disease that's essentially between intravenous drug users. So what you see, and then it was even worse, this hallelujah chorus of all these ex-directors of the FDA saying this is terrible. So number one, you conclude that in general, people in charge are corrupt and stupid, okay? But then you take a look at things going on, and this goes earlier than the elections that we talk about.
Of course.
2010 was an interesting year because that was the year that Google was no longer the number one internet destination, taken over by Facebook. All right. So you ask yourself something. How in the world could that be? I can understand how Facebook can have a lot of traffic, but I really don't understand how it can have more traffic than a general search engine where you're looking up anything at all.
Right.
Okay. So I'm thinking, number one, is that actually true? And if it is, what the hell is going on? Because other than, look up your old high school girlfriend, how much time are you going to spend on there? Right. And you start thinking about, and I've said this to my wife and some friends, 50% of what goes on in this world makes no sense. And I
Oh,
think
I just got the TikTok warning. I don't know. Did you say something? I
what
don't
did
know
you
what.
do?
I don't know. That's the
I
problem.
was I was questioning reality. I don't know.
Maybe it was the crack about the stolen election. They're still picky about that one. You can't talk about that. But yeah, most of these people are stupid and corrupt. I couldn't agree more. And that's nothing new. That goes back to ancient times. I mean, that's you could read the Bible to get that, right? I mean,
Well, that's a very good point. But the other thing is, once you open your eyes, then it's almost, as my friend, the late Vin Lewis, Catholic apologist, used to say, it's almost for entertainment value at that point. When you start seeing, okay, you no doubt heard about this reaction where after Trump made his comment about Somalis and garbage, and
right.
88% of them are on some sort of social assistance, media side quotes this guy who they don't give too many details on. He's a Somali doctor, supposedly, that voted for Trump.
Mhm.
And my kids are not garbage. Okay, now let me ask you this. Suppose someone made a disparaging remark about Jews and referred to many specific true cases. I think that you, as a Jew, would not counter it by saying, well, I'm a Jew and a good guy. You'd say, yeah, unfortunately, too many of these people are Jews.
Yeah,
You'd at least
corruption. Yeah.
acknowledge it. But to deny it and then lie and say you voted for Trump, which really,
Yeah, right. Well, they picked up. They found this guy, and they look for that. I mean, to
I don't
get
even know
somebody.
if he exists. It might be
No, I
fake.
mean yeah, it is. I mean, they'll find someone to say something like that, or they'll find somebody to say something really stupid for
Yeah,
the other side to make it look
yeah,
worse. Um, I mean that's what they do. I remember when just a quick anecdote when I was in Boston, there was a local scandal with this young woman, a nanny, accidentally killed the baby that she was caring for. She was a British young woman, and it was a big story in Boston. And the parents were being criticized because they were never home. I mean, they were both professional people and they were working a lot. And I got a call from the Boston Globe. I mean, at that time, I think I was getting involved in politics. So I was like in talk radio. They wanted to know if I would say that if I would condemn these parents because the mother should be home taking care of the baby barefoot and cooking and not going out, and they wanted me to say something like ultra like traditional, that I would take that position. And if I had played ball, the doors would have opened. I would have been on the network news. I would have been interviewed. It would have been like great because they were looking for some bonehead to say something really
right,
crazy. And,
right, right.
and that's what they do. That's how the media works. And people are happy to play ball with that. They get their big fat face on TV and they get to promote their little business or whatever it is you're trying to push. Makes them feel like a big shot for the day.
For
So
the
they,
day. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So they find this guy to throw, to kind of play ball with that kind of narrative. Meanwhile, the Somali scandal is opening up big time. You have over $1 billion funneled to El Shabaab, which is a terrorist group in Somalia. And
Yeah.
this, you would think that liberals, I mean, this is another one where they're getting behind something that is not going to be helpful to them because the money was taken from welfare programs. So that money that should have gone to hungry children and sick children and, people that are the truly needy, people who are looking to get a place at the table. We hear them, screeching about the need for big government spending. Well, guess what? That big government spending to the tune of $1 billion went overseas to a terrorist group, and a lot of it filtered into the pockets of these corrupt politicians, including the governor there, that crazy guy that ran with Harris, and the secretary and the attorney general, that radical, and
No,
other the mayor. And I mean, there's all these rumors. I'm not saying I know this, but there are rumors flying around that a lot of money exchanged hands.
well, let me
And
tell you this. Some of
yeah,
the latest on that is They're now saying that it's not 1 billion, could be as high as 8 billion.
And it's also multi-state, including especially California. I mean, they're just scratching the surface. This is a huge national scandal.
You think the Republicans would run with this sort of generic thing. All right, why is the cost of living so high? Well, because taxes are high, because a huge percentage of the government is corrupt. Okay,
Right.
when I wrote about, when I had that Health News Digest column, I started writing about Medicare. Conservative estimate of Medicare, Medicaid fraud is 30%. I saw some reports saying it was over 50%. Okay. You're talking about trillions of dollars in fraud.
Oh yeah. If you look at it, I mean, I recently saw a statistic showing that the Lyndon Johnson War on Poverty, from the time it was launched in 1965 up until today, has cost the taxpayers, I think, $5 trillion with a T.
Sorry, 30 trillion.
Thank you. Okay. Actually, you're the one who told me this. Now that I think I ended up using that in a paper for my class. And who got rich off that? I mean, where did the money go? Whose pockets? You know, they were able to expand these massive agencies, and that people made it into a cottage industry. And you know, you have whole endeavors. You know, people's careers. I mean, you know, colleges set up departments. You had people hopping on payrolls. You had experts. You know, it became this boomerang effect of massive trillions going into these agencies that are supposed to help people deal with the social problems that they're exacerbating and that they're responsible largely for.
Well, of course, the trivial conclusion is apparently money doesn't cure poverty, because you spent all this money. You could have given every poor person, you know, $500,000 for what this cost. It probably more, but it proves that there's plenty of wealth, but it's getting destroyed by the concomitant corruption that it just follows it hand in glove.
But here we are reaching the end of the year, and there are things that are coming out, starting with the Somali thing, which is just like, as we said, the tip of the iceberg. It's going to spread, and we have an administration, and we have enough people in government right now who actually are the right people to take this on.
Yeah.
You know, that they're going to really look at it and maybe dig into it. I mean, I don't know. It's possible as the year progresses. They can't deny it. They can't avoid it. I understand that Mike Lindell is now running for governor of Minnesota. That's interesting.
What's interesting, I thought he was from Texas.
No, he's from Minnesota. Mike Lindell, the Pillow Man, Minnesota.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lindell. I thought you said Michael Dell.
No, Lindell. Oh, Michael Dell. There's another story. Here you have probably the first president, you could argue, since FDR. I don't know if I would give him that kind of credit, but it's the first president to actually do something about poverty in this country, instead of shelling money off to his friends, like, you know, the poverty wars, you know, as we've talked about just now, or sitting up and posturing and blah, blah, blah. Oh, instead, he's got several programs, and one of which was rolled out last week, where every child born in America is going to, under a certain income, right, with the parents, will be getting a $1,000 deposit. Now, look, I know someone, my daughter, had an account like that set up by her grandparents for college. And the money just sat there. And then when she went to college, all of a sudden we opened it up and it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what this is the $1,000 is going to be in index funds. It's not going to be, you know, used, manipulated. It'll just be the flat top blue chip companies that people who can contribute up to $4,000 a year and get tax deduction. That means family members if they can. If not, fine. When the child reaches 18 years old, they then get a limited access to the account where they can either use it for college, they could use it to start a business, or they can use it as down payment for property. What a way to reduce institutional poverty. I mean, they always are talking about institutional poverty. The other program is the Big Beautiful Bill, which basically reduces and eliminates Social Security tax on people earning as retirement income less than $50,000 a year. What a way to help elderly people who are on fixed incomes and increase general income in the country. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on mortgage interest for your primary property. Tell that one to Letitia James, right? I mean,
she beat another indictment, by the way.
It's aggravating, but the point is people don't care. What they do care about is that these are programs that actually help poor people. They actually are not just the usual bullcrap where people stand up in the soapbox like a Cory Booker, the poor people, or Bernie Sanders. These do something. These are real things. Taking Ozempic. Trump is hilarious. I mean, RFK says the country is going to lose $100 billion pounds by Christmas. By making Ozempic a set price of $150 so that average people can afford it instead of what it is now, which is $3,000.
Yeah.
And programs like that, stopping drug companies from undercutting American consumers by having to charge the same to Americans that they charge in Europe, where they give people a big break. They can't do that now. They can, that's like, fixing the price and jacking it up for Americans. These are real things. The right to try in medicine, the First Step Act, which helped free 10,000 predominantly black men from prison who had been thrown in prison for minor crimes. Now Trump is going to be doing a Second Step Act. I heard Steve Bannon make a reference to this because he's on the committee that's going to be recommending those reforms. And what better person than someone who was put in prison for 4 months? He knows from the inside what that's about. These are genuine social reforms that we are getting, and the mainstream media won't talk about this.
No, they don't talk about it because it would put to the lie. You can take it back to FDR, you can take it back to Wilson, all these political social programs that ended up with very scant accomplishments,
right?
Spending a lot of money. And
I mean, Social Security is a huge ripoff to working people.
Yeah.
No doubt. I mean, if they had taken, it doesn't even have to necessarily be completely private either. You can have it run the same way they run their own program in Congress or in the judiciary, which is that you have it in a fund similar to the one that they're setting up for every child, where the money goes into, and in that case, you can choose like risk or low risk.
Well, I mean, it's essentially a 401k. Okay.
Right.
You don't have Social Security, but you do have to, by law, have some investment set up, just like you have to have auto insurance to get a driver's license and so on.
That's right. And the money would accumulate, and then when you retire, right now the way it works is that talk about screwing, frankly, black people. A black man may not be married at the time that he passes away, or he may not have reached the age of 65, and all that money that had been contributed to Social Security is poof, it's gone.
Yeah.
Whereas if that had been put into an account, there could have been someone inheriting the money. What a way to build wealth! What a way to reduce this institutional poverty that the sociologists.
Well, when FDR set it up, okay, it was retirement age of 65. The longevity was 64. So it was a great risk situation. and the benefits were very low.
Yeah.
So it was just another scam way of raising money. And I keep going back to one of my favorite topics. That's why the education system suppresses inductive reasoning, which is kind of what we're doing here, right? Well, wait a minute. We spent $30 trillion. How come we still have poor people? That's a very good question. But they don't want you to ask that question. And the danger of inductive reasoning is that you take observations and form a huge conclusion. They want to rather emphasize deductive reasoning. Joe is a policeman. Policemen wear blue uniforms. Joe wears a blue uniform. That's fine. You're not going to accomplish anything with that. It's a waste of time. But if you have big conclusions, then you ask damaging questions. Like, why the hell they give all these vaccines to kids? It went from 80 something 30, 40 years ago to over 200 now. Maybe that had some effect on the kids, right?
Yeah, of course it did. And not to mention the stuff that they put into the vaccine, besides the actual vaccine itself, formaldehyde, mercury, who knows what else to preserve it. And this is injected into 1-day-old children. This is like, yeah, of course it's going to affect their health and their brains. And
it makes you wonder about the state of healthcare providers. Okay, on the one hand, the notion of a 1-day-old baby developing a fever is super serious. You don't want that to occur.
No.
Yet, in a certain percentage of these kids that we're getting the Hep B vaccine, they develop a fever. So somehow now there's a disconnect.
And they wonder if there's any connection between that and autism, which I think there is. I mean, I don't know that. I'm not a doctor, and I know it's anecdotal. I have a cousin who he was born fine, and then they gave him all the vaccines, and he got a high fever, very sick for several days, and he got better. But he's never been the same. I mean, as an adult, he's like disabled. And they don't really put that together, but I do.
Well, it ends up being this weird kind of revealed wisdom thing that because of the success of the Salk and Sabin vaccines, therefore, any vaccine anywhere given to anybody is a good thing.
And to criticize it can be absolutely demonized.
And what Steve Kirsch, of course, has done with the COVID vaccine, but here's the point. Kirsch just put out an article today. There was a study in AMA Journal out of France coming up with these grandiose conclusions. It saved 75%, prevented 75% of deaths, some huge figures like this. It's all bogus. It was lying with statistics. And it's like the sad part is not the scientists lie, which they do all the time. The sad part is they feel they have to maintain a narrative.
Do they know this consciously, that they're lying and that they just are? I mean, are they not fearful that maybe they might run afoul of their establishment could damage their careers?
Well, no, they damage their careers by telling the truth.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, so they lie, but they don't necessarily.
No, if they lie, they further their careers.
But they don't tell themselves that. They just sort of internalize it.
No, they want something to be true. And the problem with, sort of new style, quote, science is that it's not really science anymore. It's all statistics and modeling. So you can dink the modeling to come up with any conclusion you want. The greatest example of that is this climate nonsense.
Yeah, that's all projection. Looking at modeling, as you say, on online, there's no evidence of it at all. I'm not saying it's untrue, but I'm saying that everyone's mind has been completely jiggered
Well,
about
it's worse than no evidence. Now, anything that happens becomes evidence. We had a
right.
hurricane yesterday. Oh, climate change.
And everybody's walking around, they think they're a scientist. It's too hot, climate change. Too
Yeah.
cold, climate change.
Yeah.
You know, there's a tree falls, climate change, everything.
Yeah.
Earthquake. I'm like, what do you mean earthquake? That's not the climate. That's underground.
Well, I mean,
No,
and the reason behind this is money. All right. When I was working for the UCLA School of Public Health, or actually a short time after that, the biggest contract, it was in the 80s actually. The biggest contract in the history of UCLA, and this was during the AIDS situation,
right.
was given to Roger Deedles for a multi-country AIDS study. All right, now think about this. $20 million is still a huge amount for a scientific contract.
Oh, yeah.
$20 million, multi-country AIDS study, because AIDS was the sexy topic du jour.
Right.
All right. It was never a major cause of death in the U.S. or anywhere else, really.
Right.
But it got the political notice. And essentially what this contract was keeping track of data in multiple countries for that much money. Because that was the topic du jour. And you can look through all the grants going out, and that's the term they use. If it sounds sexy, they'll get the money. And
they don't do diddly squat. I mean, look at there's so many agencies that the government is now going after. The most classic being the Department of Education. $320 billion a year? I mean, I'd like to see
doing what?
Well, that's the question. I mean, we should have a full forensic audit of that agency to find out exactly, right down to the dollar, who is getting how much and why. What are they doing? You know, I mean, when Trump came into office, there was a lot of screeching about the fact that the DOJ committee, which is still there, they could be doing a better job, I think, but they were like, every federal employee needs to talk about what it is they do in the course of a day. We want to see a little bit of a schedule, a little diary, you know, of what kind of work they're doing and how much time they're spending on it. And there was a big hue and cry over doing that. And then you had several federal judges step in and say, you can't do that. I don't know where in the Constitution they found that, but the point is that they are doing it.
Where in the Constitution did they find federal judges?
That's right. They could be dismissed tomorrow. But they are doing it, and it is happening. I feel optimistic now as we reach the end of the year. I heard a talk earlier today about the fact that in the Department of Justice, Harmeet Dillon, who I've been following for a long time, one of the tough, courageous people in government, really, you know, the kind that we really want. And there are a lot of...
She was kicking butt in California for years before she made it to a federal job.
One of her first directives when she took office as the head of the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice was that we are going to enforce civil rights for all Americans equally. We're not going to give favoritism for black over white, for gay over straight, for women over men, for whoever. It's all equal. And the result was that about 200 of the employees resigned. They're like, we can't do this. And apparently now recently there was another mass resignation. They weren't forced out. They just left because they could not do and enforce the laws equally. That isn't what they were about. They were into like an ideological agenda. They want to have men and women's sports and all this kind of crap. And I think that she's like as tough as nails. She's like, fine, good. You know, here's the door. And now she's bringing in people who actually have taken the time to read the Constitution and who are going to do the job equally under the law. So I think her agency and her work is similar to that of a lot of the agencies now. it is moving in the right direction. I'd like to see it. We all would like to see it happen faster than it is, but it's happening. It's happening, I think, at the FBI. They are releasing more information. Tulsi Gabbard is releasing more information in January, I understand, with regard to Crossfire Hurricane and all of that. And by the way, a really good book to read on this topic is the book that was just written by Eric Trump, Trump's son. I forget what it's called, Under Siege. Good book. I'm reading it. He talks about this. He talks about what it's been like to be close to Trump and to see what they tried to do to that family. It's like, I mean, it's ugly. And they're getting to the bottom of that. I think that they are going to expose it. Maybe these people will never pay. But I think that's that has to be done. Otherwise, they're going to come back. And Comey was so corrupt. It's unbelievable what he did in that agency. I don't know. That man is so arrogant. It's just hard to imagine.
Well, it's the same thing with Fauci. When you've been getting away with it for your entire career, it's going to come across as being arrogant.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, they think that and even now when Comey responds to the fact that he's temporarily gotten scot-free, the arrogance and the supercilious, stuck up kind of weird guy. I mean, this is typical. I mean, I think that there's something in that culture that he comes from that, plus the fact I caught a little excerpt from Rush Limbaugh, which I posted, by the way, on my Twitter account, where Rush Limbaugh says that he had been a communist, that being Comey, before. So, I mean, and I believe that. And, this kind of like holier than thou thing. And I mean, and it all goes back to Obama, and just these people were like so corrupt. I think that has to continue to be pursued. I think it is being pursued. It's again not happening as quick as we'd like. The biggest danger afoot right now, in terms of stopping the growth of the cleaning of the Augean stables of this government, right, is the possibility that the Republicans, as feckless as they are, even so, that they might lose the midterms, and that would be a disaster, frankly, because that would be the end. I think at this point,
I don't think it's good. I mean, what you'd count on is, if you're looking at Gen Z, the Democrats have been able to get away with all this horrible agenda, basically with one word: racism, right? In other words, if you're attacking obvious corruption with this Somali stuff, that is racist, right? But here's the thing.
That's not flying, though, is it?
Well, of course it isn't, but that's what they're going to say. Well, here's the beauty with Gen Z. Oh, okay, I'm racist. Now what? It doesn't stop them anymore.
It's also, I think that enough people have been peeled off of that kind of identity mindset that they're not buying it. That's why Trump won. People just didn't buy this stuff anymore. I mean,
the sad part is, we got a super corrupt individual who did untold damage, Barack Obama, just, I guess, so white people could prove they're not racist, and we vote for this guy. Now, It was aided and abetted by the fact that the Republicans put up total losers against him. I get that.
Yeah, sure.
But maybe that was all part of it. Well, we have to have a black guy in there.
And also, Obama exploited that for all 8 years that he was in office. Anyone who disagreed with him, anyone who challenged him, you're racist.
That's how he got into the state legislature in Illinois, and he became a senator.
You're all racist if you disagree.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that his main opponent in that race for the special election for senator in Illinois was Alan Keyes, who, by the way, was black, and who was wildly supported by conservatives.
Yeah.
Putting that aside, Obama played that card constantly, and it doesn't work now. I don't think it's flying. I mean, they're still doing it front page on, with the guy who took over from Lester Holt, who's at Yarmouth. This is the front story. That Trump said something about Somali people, and then they go off and they start attacking Hegseth, and this. Never mind the fact that this story came out about Michael Dell and the $1,000 per child. That wasn't even mentioned because that's good news. They don't want to say anything good.
I mean, the best news could be, and you have explained it to me, but good God, that would be the death of the network news. Because at that point, whatever influence they have, there are people that still watch that crap. You can explain to me why. I still don't understand.
They're old mostly. I mean, they're the people that did the King rally. They're older than you and I. They're like they're like 90. My mother, God bless her, she's 92 years old, seething with hatred for Trump, goes out of her mind with this. She wishes he was assassinated. I'm talking really absolute.
But what's the source of the hate exactly?
I just think that, and she's not the only one. I've seen older people that are like this. I mean, they're absolutely beside themselves with rage, and they're just that's the constituency, along with suburban, well-to-do, well-educated white women. That is this anti-Trump thing, and I think it's dwindling. Even if they shave off a few pieces of it, I think the question, though, as I said, is whether or not the Republicans can hold on to the House at the midterm, which is a very serious matter. I think that they will, because the Supreme Court has now come down and said that Texas can go forward with their redrawn congressional map, which adds 6 new Republicans to the House in Texas.
And I believe that Indiana is doing a redistricting too.
I think that Indiana has the old rhinos run by Pence, and they hate Trump as they're worse. They're more traitorous than these old lefties.
Well, I knew there was another state that's considering doing this.
I think so. Missouri, maybe. They're going to become like Massachusetts. It's sad, but that's what they do. Massachusetts and New England has 0 Republican representation. Yet 40% of the people in New England are registered Republicans, because they carve up these districts and they do this. I mean, this goes back. This isn't new. And now, Republicans have finally learned how to play this game, and they're doing it. And I think that, combined with, God willing, the economy doing better next year. I don't know if it will. I heard an interview with Scott Bessent. I don't know if I believe it, but, they're always going to say it's going to do better. But he claims that after maybe the first or second quarter, we're going to turn the tide and, inflation is going to start to settle down a little bit. That revenue is coming in from the tariffs. And that some of these big promises of investment by foreign governments and companies, because they want to avoid the tariff, among other things, is going to start to happen, and we're going to start to feel that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I believe any of that. I mean, those are projections, but I think if that does happen, then we'll have nothing to worry about. But unless it happens, there are still worries about that. You have to.
I mean, it's a legit worry. I certainly would emphasize that you got to cut government waste. I mean, when you made this comment about a forensic audit of the Department of Education, depends how far you want to go. All right, typical government agency, you're going to find, there are some people that don't work very hard. All right, but that's not the major issue. You can find that, okay, we're spending X dollars at Department of Education to do bing, 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 bing. All right, but then you start looking at those bullet points. Well, why are you doing that?
They should all be eliminated, and I think that Secretary McMahon has said that maybe about 10% at most of what they do is legitimate. that can be absorbed by other agencies. They don't even need. I mean, I think constitutionally, I believe they need to keep a Department of Education because it was ratified by Congress. So they'll keep the department, but make it like, I mean, put it like out of Washington for one thing, and just
Well, what do you okay? But then it raises another question. What do you do with these people? It's
yeah,
mostly in the DC area, not only, but mostly in the DC area. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of
probably.
federal employees. All right.
Oh, I think there's something like 3 million. I remember years ago. Do you remember Bob Barr, Congressman Bob Barr?
Yeah. Georgia.
I interviewed him years ago, and he talked about this. This was already in the 90s,
Yeah.
and he said there's 3.5 million federal employees, and he went into some detail. I don't know whatever happened to him. I should try to see, but that was then. Can you imagine now? I mean, and then he did
like
a lot.
14 million now.
Yeah, and he did a lot of work on that. I mean, he was a good guy. I mean, we need people like that. But he was like, they're not doing it. This is what they're doing. It's actually quite unproductive and un-American. And this was already 40 years ago. Can you imagine? They started to introduce DEI. They started to introduce critical race theory, all these programs, billions of dollars. You had USAID, which spent billions of dollars on color revolutions around the world and in the United States.
Yeah.
And they funneled money back to American politicians and left-wing causes. Marco Rubio, he said, look, we're going to absorb the tiny bit of this agency that actually does something to help people, around the world who are dealing with natural disaster and starvation. That's like 10%, 8%.
Yeah.
And that's going to go under the direct control of the State Department. The rest of it,
that agency was going on, I believe, since JFK.
Yeah, JFK started it, and originally the idea was probably good, but like most, if not all, federal agencies, and certainly in Massachusetts, I'd say state agencies, they've gone way above and beyond their original mission, and they've become very corrupt. And now we're finding out from Minnesota and the Somali scandal that they're literally involved in crimes. They're stealing the money.
I think Minnesota is a special case because you may not like Maura Healey very much.
No.
But I don't believe she comes across as a total blithering idiot like Tim Walz does.
No, she's not as bad as him. He is really a piece of work. I don't understand how.
Does anybody watching this show now remember when his name was mentioned to be the VP candidate? 7 or 8 members of his immediate family came out and said, no, bad guy, don't do it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was the worst. I mean, that was absurd. I mean, it was just, and yet, and he's, in a way, he's the poster boy for what's going on in probably all of the blue states and many of the red states in terms of this kind of graft. And it's
more. How does that get to be elected?
I know he is a strange bird. I mean, there's so many things about him.
I certainly didn't follow his career, but I would imagine to become governor of Minnesota, you have to make some appearances. You have to talk to people.
That is a question. I mean, the stolen valor and the China, the time he spent in China. I mean, it's all very shady, very strange. Just a weird guy anyways. I mean, it's like, I don't get that.
So then of course, the next follow-up question is, okay, fine. Of all the people in the U.S. to pick for your vice presidential candidate, how do you pick that yutz? I mean, what was the mental process?
Anybody else wanted to do it. and of course, she wouldn't pick Shapiro because she wanted a Jew, but that might piss off the Intifada crowd, right? At that time, people with the keffiyehs and the.
Well, I'll tell you, if I were Josh Shapiro at that point, I would have switched parties. Shapiro was the obvious choice.
Of course,
everybody knew he was the obvious choice, and it's one thing to not get the gig, but when you give the job to Tim Walz.
Well, at that, I don't think, I think the bottom line is that nobody really took her seriously, anyways.
Yeah. Well,
Which
yeah.
is, the whole thing was a disaster. But again, we're looking into the next year, and you know, in every sense, I'm optimistic, except that I'm concerned about what they're going to do at the midterms. That to me, I don't know what kind of bullcrap they're going to pull. They still have election fraud machinery in place. I know that that corrupt Secretary of State in Michigan, Jocelyn Benson, I've been talking about her for years.
How does she get elected every time?
She's,
She's been in there forever.
I know, and she's as corrupt as hell. She's one of these fresh faced, attractive young women who just, they pick them. I mean, she got a lot of funding from George Soros, and they put those people in place because they know that they can sell them like you'd sell a can of peas. You know, it's sort of like apple pie and motherhood.
Well, how come the Republicans didn't run someone who's better looking?
Yeah, right. I mean, the Republicans in that state were being they were trying to put him in jail. I mean, they're doing like what they did to Tina Peters. I mean, it was ugly.
Yeah.
You know, it was really bad and really dangerous for a time. I think that tide is turning though in Michigan, from what I understand. But those corrupt states that were the so-called swing states, they still have that apparatus in place, and it's still worrisome. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, Colorado's gone. I don't talk about them. I mean, that's gone
I
complete.
mean, the fact that we're even talking about Arizona as a swing state is pretty sad.
Well, you have all the Californians. Same thing. It's just like what happened in New Hampshire. All the Massachusetts went up, and they took over.
Vermont, the Ben and Jerry effect.
Vermont was taken over by New Yorkers. I mean, this is the natives. They have been co-opted in those states, and even Texas is having problems.
I mean, there had to be some sort of hanky panky going on with Vermont, because.
By the way, why didn't the mainstream media talk about the fact that Trump pardoned Cuellar, the congressman from Texas, a liberal Democrat, who, him and his wife were being like, it looked to me like lawfare. That's what Trump said, because he came out against Biden's open borders, and his district is on the border, and he's Hispanic, and he's like, this isn't right. And so what happens? All of a sudden, they're throwing the book at him. I mean, just like what they did to Trump. I mean, again, you got to read Eric Trump's account of this.
Well, okay, interesting point. Cuellar got screwed by his own party, and it was very sad in that if you go to South Texas, there's not a whole big support for illegal aliens.
No, of course not.
Yeah. So this was a stupid issue. He took the right stand on it, but then who bails him out is Trump.
Exactly.
So what is up with that guy that he doesn't say, you know what, I'm going to change parties because my party sucks?
I think that he has said that, actually. He didn't say he was going to change parties. I don't know. I don't think he's still in office, but he did thank Trump, and he did very effusively. I mean,
but it's exactly right. He was targeted because he didn't go along.
Exactly. It's using the government to go. I mean, really, Obama's in modern recent memory started this with the Lois Lerner scandal, right? I mean, using the IRS, the agency that she ran, to attack conservatives who wanted to do a program that they set up for liberals. Let's face it. I mean, right? Tax exemption, special status, all that stuff. All of a sudden, conservative groups were like, "Oh, okay, let's do this."
Good idea.
Yeah, of course. And then they found out the hard way that it wasn't such a good idea, because Lois Lerner, who went into the White House and met Trump like 50 times, and who pled the fifth times, was targeting those groups and putting. This was the beginning of lawfare, and then of course it continued on through Trump's first term.
Well,
and then,
here we go. If you have that job and you work for the IRS, You got legit stuff to do. So why take it upon yourself to attack conservative groups? All right.
Because they were
And
political
because
hacks.
there are these zealots and they just should be kicked out. Okay. That's not your job.
Well, that
Right.
was what she was there for. She was an ideologue and a political hack, and her job was to use the agency to weaponize and go after opponents of the government.
Well, after she left the agency, she was targeted. There were several very entertaining videos
I
of
saw.
these Alex Stein type people. I don't know if it actually was Alex Stein. Go
No,
to her house.
I remember this. I forget who he was. Jason Matera, I think.
Yeah.
He was out there with a microphone, and she's like running, right? And he's like, I just want to ask you a few questions. She goes to her neighbor's house and she's banging on the door, and this woman comes to the door. She goes, I don't want to get involved here. I'm recovering from cancer. I'm not. Don't call me.
So you remember
And she's like, oh, like, screaming. Yeah, I mean, this is. I don't want. I wonder what's
it.
happening.
You know what, Chuck? What about courage in your convictions? What would have been easier? Running away from the guy or just fine? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, exactly. She was running. I mean, literally running.
Yeah.
And she was like, I wonder what's happened to her. I'm sure she got a big fat pension, and she's living high on the hog, just like all these people, somewhere.
She was vested early enough. Okay, these great pension deals don't really exist like they used to.
Yeah.
She was probably at the 85% or something. It isn't like that anymore. But
Right, they changed that. Yeah.
but it's like you could tell. I mean, it's guilty conscience. If someone didn't like you and encountered you on the street, are you gonna run away from them? Fine. What do you want to talk about? Here I am.
Speaking of that, I mean, there was. I don't know if these are real or if it's AI, because that's an issue. But I've seen several of these videos now of people who they put like a box on their porch, that looks like it was dropped Amazon, and they have their cameras. And then somebody comes up, grabs the box, and all of a sudden, boom, it explodes with like red paint covering them. And then you see their face and all the smoke. And it's really funny to watch the people.
Well, it is AI because
is it?
How could you control that explosion so precisely?
Maybe they're sitting behind the door with a little button, and the minute they get to the car, they wait till they're at the door, and then boom, and the whole car and all their clothes are soaked with yellow paint. It's hilarious.
I think it's
and some of the people that are doing it, you get this very proper older woman with a nice clothes on and her pearls, and she's going up grabbing a package.
Yeah.
It's just funny. I mean, it gives you a sense of like watching somebody get justice.
Well, there is, while that might be fake, there's stuff that you wished were fake, but it isn't, where there was this black kid who was trying to steal copper wire. You may have seen that.
I haven't, no.
He hacksaws into the conduit, trying to steal the wire, electrocutes himself. Duh.
Yeah.
So his mother is in court. Well, he was just trying to steal, and you killed him. Lady, if you cut into it.
What was he doing? Yeah. Well, they show that with the package too. They're like, I'm calling the police. You can't get away with this. And so the cop shows up and she's like, look what they did to me. And he's like, what were you doing with that package? That doesn't matter. But again, I don't know if those are real, but it's funny to watch. It gives you a sense of like seeing justice happen. We want to see people who are taking advantage and who are screwing us get their just desserts. That's why we want to see the people like Comey, being perp walked. And, we may not get that. He may get away with it. There are powerful people behind him. And all of these people, all these former intelligence people who tried to rig the election and fixed the Hunter Biden thing and did who knows what else. And there's been very few whistleblowers come forward about all the things happening in that election. So we'll never get to the bottom of it, but at least we can, get them out of harm's way.
I
The
think if
Faucis of the world.
anything does happen to Fauci, it's not going to happen from an investigation. Because remember, you're talking a lot of money here.
Right.
And if it ever gets to the point where it looks like he's going to go down and he's going to start squealing about what's happening, he may just suffer an accident.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, that is what happens. I did a book about this, the assassinations in America. I mean, people. I mean, look. I mean, when you say that, I think of Harry Dexter White, right? I mean, there's a new book out actually by Sam Tannenhouse, who wrote an excellent biography of Whittaker Chambers, and now he's come out with a book about William F. Buckley that I'm going to try to interview him. But I mean, they talk about that Chambers handled. I heard him being interviewed with Steve Bannon. He did a good job. He handled Harry Dexter White, who was the Assistant Secretary of the Treasury,
right,
who was the author of the Morgenthau Plan, which would have turned Nazi Germany, over to the Soviet Union by pasteurizing it and starving the country to death. And he did a lot of things that were unbelievable inside the government, to help communist China. He was called to testify because of Chambers. On his way to the Congress, he had a heart attack and died while he was on the train, I think. And it just doesn't look right.
Too convenient. Yeah.
Yeah. It just, it seems those kinds of things seem to happen.
Yeah.
When someone's about to crack, and he was cracking. He was upset. He was going to spill the beans on everyone. He just was absolutely beside himself. I didn't do this. Oh. I mean, on the other hand, Alger Hiss was always as cool as a cucumber. They never could get him to say anything. But
he got a couple of years for perjury.
He got his just desserts. I mean, he spent a couple of years in prison for perjury. His wife divorced him, and he came out and he basically spent the rest of his life, I think, working as a shoe salesman. I mean, nobody wanted to have anything to do with him. He was not, he didn't come back after having a very exalted career. And, you have somebody like Whittaker Chambers. I mean, you have to have somebody like that who's going to whistleblow and step forward and really stand up and take all kinds of crap and do it and change the course of history. We haven't had anyone like that so far. There's a couple of people who are whistleblowing at the FBI. They now say that there were a couple of people whistleblowing in Minnesota, and it allegedly, we were talking about Walsh, he had them demonized rather than hear them.
Oh, there's a group of 400, I think, employees at that state agency. There's a lot of bad politics
covering up this incredible fraud of their social service departments, right? They're supposed to, money is supposed to go to help the people that are downtrodden. Whatever happened to that? Anyway,
there is a video that's getting a lot of views of Jacob Fry, who's the
talking Somali, right?
and he's talking Somali, but there was another one where he's at a Somali restaurant, and they show him enjoying the food, but it's obvious he isn't. He'll take a little bite,
and
play with his food like a 4-year-old kid would, move things around.
Sure.
Take another bite.
Oh man, that's funny. So, but on the issue of like these big crimes, like this 2020 election, there still hasn't been anyone who of significance to come forward on the inside and blow the whistle. I mean, there were people who did it and they were demonized, and I think everyone else is scared to this day. I remember that the UPS guy in New York who talked about bringing pallets of ballots across state lines into Pennsylvania the day before the election. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
Press conference. Giuliani was there. he was, it just fell through the memory hole. I mean, either that or I think he was probably told not to talk anymore.
Well,
But
I think the trouble was that was when the media still had a little more sway than they do now. That people didn't hate the media enough. Like, so if you could get some media figure say, well, Giuliani is full of crap and so on, and Sidney Powell is full of it and so on, that would have been enough then. Because remember, no one wanted to believe this stuff. And
right,
because if you're raised your whole life with the elections and you and I know how many corrupt elections there have been in American history,
sure,
but if you're the typical person who gets, reads a history book in high school and so on, you may have a vague recollection that there were some questions about Illinois and Texas in the JFK Nixon race,
right.
but that didn't go anywhere. But that's it, and
Yeah, I
people
get what you're saying. People didn't want to believe it, but I think that, you know, at the time that the media declared Biden the winner, and that's how it happened.
yeah,
They just declared it. There still were people who were coming forward and they were ignored or they were demonized, and they saw, look at Giuliani blew the whistle on that the lady with the blonde braids in
yeah,
Georgia, and he was sued. He lost everything. I'm
yeah.
just saying that the machine was in high gear, and that
Well,
people who went
the
after.
machine's in high gear, and then we've talked about this too. We have sort of the Crusades effect, right? If you're a French knight and you're out in some godforsaken desert
Yeah,
fighting these hordes,
after a while, you're like, forget it.
yeah, you know what? I'm going to go back to my castle. I don't need this crap.
Right. I think you're right. That's what people became fatigued. I mean,
Yeah,
even like there was some really ugly things. Like there was this young guy in Atlanta, Fulton County. He was dating the daughter of the governor, Brian Kemp.
yeah,
He was on the staff of Kelly Loeffler, who was an interim senator. He had information. He was about to do something, and his car blew up. It wasn't an
yeah.
accident. He didn't hit anyone. There were witnesses. It was a bomb. I mean, the thing blew up. And I think that kind of thing sends a message to people who are thinking of maybe telling some truths on the inside. I think that message was loud and clear. Couldn't have been any more blunt than that. And I think it stays. I think people just don't want to come forward. You'll end up like like the mafia used to say, feeding fishies in the sea, being fitted for cement shoes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say it that way, but I think that is still in play. That's why we're not getting to the truth. This establishment is not going to ever. We'll find out the truth when you and I have long gone to our just rewards, and like 40 years down the road, finally there'll be a historian who's going to publish the truth when everyone is gone, and because it won't matter anymore.
That's exactly it won't matter anymore.
Find out the truth about the Lusitania in the 1950s. The fact that the government had set that up to get into World War I.
Yeah.
That was rumored as, oh, no, you're a conspiracy.
But interesting point with that. You're right. At the time, people were saying it was a setup.
And they were put in prison. Look, I mean, Wilson just suspended the Constitution by suspending habeas corpus.
Yeah.
And people were put in prison. I mean, for criticizing the war. I mean, Eugene Debs, right? Socialist, leftist. He was put in prison because he questioned the war. He was anti-war. And he was eventually pardoned by Warren G. Harding. But that, so there was.
Look at Pearl Harbor at the time.
Right. Admiral Kimmel.
Yeah.
Demonized, attacked. You didn't question these things. And if you did, you paid a big price. And so I think that's what's going on here. I mean, people are not going to come forward because of they see what happened to that poor guy in Fulton County. I mean, everyone saw that. That's what's going to happen. Why do it? You can't put your neck out
What
like that.
happened during COVID was a little different. That people didn't go into the full Monty about it, but you had guys coming out real early, essentially saying, "Don't take the shots."
Yeah, this is
They
crap.
didn't go into detail. They didn't talk about corruption. It's like, don't take the shots.
There were some prominent people who did that. I remember Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
He stood up. I'm not taking the shot. I mean, so, you had a couple of prominent athletes, Djokovic, the tennis player. They wouldn't let him in the country unless he had the shot. So he says, fine, I'm not going to play.
Yeah.
So I think that the truckers, the Canadian truckers stood up. And so you had enough people to stand up to that.
Well, they stood up, but the point is that no one went full bore on detailing all the corruption. Maybe
Right.
some of it wasn't known at the time, but it's very difficult to go up against that establishment. And you just have to hope that more people go to alternative media, which they are, to get a different point of view. But as I say all the time, you can't hate the elite media enough. It's not possible.
No, and they completely sandbagged part of the handmaidens of this leftist establishment. It's that simple. I mean, they know damn well the election was stolen, but they will never say it because not only would they lose their job, first of all, like I'm thinking in this case, Jim Browdy here in Boston, he knows the election was stolen, but he'll never say it. And not only that, but he wants people to be attacked because he loves the steal. I mean, He despises Trump, and he's happy. He's a happy warrior. He wants to participate in this, and that's what you have. Anyways, so Mike, what have you coming up in your Substack?
Well, we had that thing come out, I think, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, which was further on the Trump derangement syndrome. But now I have to go in a different direction because so many of the things seem to derive from the same point, inductive reasoning, corrupt government programs. So it's almost like you have, we've been harping on that and harping on that. So maybe I'll do some movie reviews or something, because
Speaking of which, I mean, Matt Walsh occasionally does a good review. Yeah. He did a review of the Ken Burns American Revolution series, which I watched some of. And, on the surface, it was quite good. And he does get into a lot of aspects. But the problem is that it is just filled with this politically correct stuff about how so-and-so is a misogynist and this one's a racist. And this one's all DEI kind of critical.
Oh, what about that Iroquois stuff?
The Iroquois, they start with that, which is complete bogus. The Iroquois, which was an illiterate group of Indian tribes, they're responsible for this. And Matt Walsh mentioned this one case where this woman was fighting on the front lines with her husband as a patriot. He was he was killed. She then picks up his gun and continues fighting. It's a great story. And she ends up taking bullet, and she survives. But then he goes on to say, well, because she's a woman, she only got half the pension that the Continental Congress gives people who had been taken out in the war. Well, Matt Walsh looked into this, and he found out, he went to the records of the Continental Congress and the Articles of Confederation. It turns out that all veterans got half their salaries, not just, and that she really wasn't entitled to any of it because she wasn't an actual soldier. The government gave it to her because they wanted to be good. I mean, she deserved it. It was a great thing, what she did, but they didn't have to. And it had nothing to do with her being a woman. He has to put everything into this.
Well, what is the reason for the popularity of this guy?
He does stuff like that. I mean, he insists.
He's a court historian of the PBS set.
He is. I mean, and he's a good filmmaker. And I thought the Civil War series was excellent. I think that was before he became completely taken over by the left. He actually did a legitimate story of the Civil War showing all sides. But he's become like I'm particularly bothered in the fact that he did this thing about Nazi Germany and he compared Hitler to Trump. I just really, it's like, that's really going low. I mean, he had to do this because, I mean, I don't know if he believes that or not, but with NPR, that's what they wanted to
Well,
say.
right. I mean, but at this point, it doesn't really matter because that's the constituency.
Yeah.
And he got trapped. He got
But
trapped.
either that or he's a true believer. I mean, I don't know. That's where it's hard to know. Either he was happy to do this, but the fact is, whether he wanted to do it or not, in order for him to get his gig at NPR, in order for him to get his paycheck and to get this incredible contract where he is literally the only documentarian, they don't have anyone else. He has to say stuff like that. They won't. He can't get it. He cannot do otherwise.
Well, the thing is, I didn't watch all of it, but the thing with the Iroquois that was so stupid was that theory was debunked like 20 years ago.
Oh, I know.
The
other one they did, and this one didn't surprise me because my American Revolution class did this, and I ended up getting a demerit on my grade because I challenged it. Was the Dunmire letter? The Dunmire letter was a letter that was written by Lord Dunmire, who was the last British governor of Virginia, freeing and emancipating the slaves of Virginia. But the problem is that he wrote it when he was already on the boat leaving. And nobody knew about it until like 20 years later. But the left is like holding this up and look at this. I mean, he freed the slaves. The British were great and they wanted to do this. And they were challenging, the slave owner, Thomas Jefferson, of course, and all, the fact is it had nothing to do with anything. It was not significant. That's all I'm saying about it.
Yeah.
It didn't have any impact because no one knew about it. But Ken Burns is all on board with that one. He did a big piece on that. That's like the new narrative. Anyway, the new revision. So anyway, Mike, but yeah, that would be great if you did a piece on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to go off in a different direction for a while because it's all starting to come together too much.
This is a great time of the year to do some cultural pieces.
Yeah, I think so.
So anyway, but I'll talk to you next week, and as always, keep on keeping on, and God bless America.
Keep the